On Monday, dozens of European leaders flew east and descended on Armenia for a European Political Community Summit in the country's capital, Yerevan. For decades since its post-Soviet Union independence, Armenia has remained firmly in Russia's orbit, as a member of the Russian-led Eurasian Economic Union and host of a Russian military base, for example. That, however, is changing, and this week's hosting of the EPC summit and the first ever Armenia-EU bilateral summit serves as a powerful signal of Armenia's ongoing geopolitical shift, with the government seeking to pull away from Russia and reorient towards Europe, even intending to apply for EU membership. So in this video, we're going to explain Armenia's attempt to move closer to Europe, including what went down at the European political community and why, with contentious elections in Armenia next month, it's easier said than done. The next issue of our magazine is out very soon, with this issue focusing on all of the wars Trump's been involved in during his second term, with each dot on the cover representing a different military intervention or strike. Inside, we run through each of the conflicts from Venezuela and Iran to Yemen and Ecuador, as well as us discussing what he's really doing. Pre-order your copy at toolong.news. Armenia actually made something of a false start towards closer European ties more than a decade ago. Having joined the EU's Eastern Partnership in 2009, Armenia and the EU began negotiating an association agreement. However, in 2013, the Armenian government abruptly changed course and instead joined the Russian-dominated Eurasian Economic Union, reinforcing Armenia's position well within Russia's orbit. In 2018, the so-called Velvet Revolution brought Nikol Pashinyan to power in Armenia at the head of a reformist government, following pro-democracy and anti-corruption protests. But it took a number of years before Russia-Armenian relations began to deteriorate. Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022 strained ties, but more significant than that was the failure of Russian peacekeepers to maintain a ceasefire between Armenia and Azerbaijan, and their failure to prevent Azerbaijan from capturing the breakaway ethnically Armenian Nagorno-Karabakh region in September 2023. For Pashinyan, this was clear evidence that Armenia could no longer rely on Russia as its security guarantor, and what followed were a series of moves designed to extricate Armenia from Russia. In 2024, Pashinyan announced that Armenia had suspended and would later officially end its membership of the Russian-led CSTO military alliance. Armenia has sought to strengthen its military cooperation with other countries, notably France, which is bolstering the small country's defence capabilities. Armenia has also removed Russian border guards from key locations at its airports and border checkpoints. The changes go beyond the military too. In 2024, Armenia joined the International Criminal Court, which has an arrest warrant out for Russian President Vladimir Putin. And in 2025, Armenia's parliament adopted a law officially endorsing accession to the European Union. The EU, for its part, in 2024 launched a €270 million so-called Resilience and Growth Plan for Armenia, designed to support its economy amid its pivot from Moscow. The geopolitical shift is a slow process though. Armenia's largest trading partner is Russia. It's still part of the Eurasian Economic Union. It still hosts a Russian military base, and it's been gradual in its withdrawal from the CSTO. This suggests that Pashinyan is mindful of the fact that Armenians aren't seeking a total divorce from Russia, but rather an independent multi-vector foreign policy. Polling from earlier this year shows a plurality of Armenians think the country's foreign policy orientation should be pro-Western while maintaining ties with Russia. The same polling shows that Armenians still recognise the importance of Russia as a political partner, with a plurality of 43% naming Russia the most important political partner. Putin made the stakes of this relationship clear when Pashinyan visited Moscow last month, stating that membership of both the EU and the Eurasian Economic Union was impossible, and issuing a veiled gas threat by pointing out that Russia sells gas to Armenia at a preferential rate, substantially cheaper than what it costs in Europe. While Armenians view Russia as their country's third greatest political threat, by a considerable distance they see Azerbaijan and Turkey as the first and second greatest. That's why another key part of Pashinyan's agenda is so contentious. His attempt to normalise relations with Azerbaijan and Turkey over the past 6 or so years. A US-brokered peace declaration was signed by Armenia and Azerbaijan in August 2025, moving the two countries closer than ever towards lasting peace, but with plenty of hurdles still ahead. Pashinyan's argument is that normalisation, which is strongly supported by the EU, is essential for peace and prosperity, enabling the opening of its long-closed borders with Azerbaijan and Turkey, and therefore prompting greater integration into the global economy. But Pashinyan's critics and opponents label him a traitor for, in their view, capitulating to the old foe Azerbaijan, which, thanks to a series of military victories since 2020, has been left with the indisputable upper hand over Armenia, which has or will have to surrender claims to culturally significant territory. Nevertheless, it's against this backdrop of geopolitical realignment that Armenia hosted the 8th summit of the European political community on Monday. As a reminder, the EPC is a more than 45 country-strong continent-wide intergovernmental forum for discussions on Europe's future. It's much broader than the European Union, with non-EU attendees like Albania, the UK, Ukraine, and, for the first time on Monday, Canada, as the first non-European participant. It's the brainchild of French President Emmanuel Macron, who incidentally has been a champion of Armenia's turn towards Europe, perhaps unsurprising given that France has the world's third largest Armenian diaspora. The EPC is an informal forum. It doesn't do joint statements and concrete deliverables, and doesn't have institutional resources and procedures. It's a way of getting lots of leaders into a room together for dialogue, and you can take this as a pro or con, it's a venue for political signalling. Armenia's hosting of the summit was clearly that. A signal by Armenia that it wants to boost its interactions with and place within Europe, and a signal by Europe that it's welcoming Armenia's turn away from Russia. As with Moldova's hosting of an EPC summit in 2023, the location choice can be seen as a show of support for a pro-European government that's under pressure from Russia and facing re-election. In Moldova's case, within the next 2 years, and in Armenia's, it's next month. The Armenia-Europe love-in was most on show when French President Macron took to the microphone and Armenian Prime Minister Pashinyan took up his drumsticks, and the pair performed an impromptu cover of a French-Armenian classic. There were, however, more concrete outcomes from the EU-Armenia bilateral summit that followed the EPC. An EU-Armenia connectivity partnership was signed, strengthening transport, energy and digital links. Progress was made on visa liberalisation, as well as moves towards greater security and defence cooperation and strategic investment. If Pashinyan is to see through his plans for Armenia, he needs to win re-election next month. His civil contract party is favoured to win, not least because the largely pro-Russian opposition is split across several parties. However, as an election closely watched in Brussels and Moscow, and with clear geopolitical implications, external interference and meddling is all but guaranteed. Furthermore, following a bitter confrontation between Pashinyan and the Armenian Church, as well as arrests of some pro-Russian opposition figures ahead of the election, the political environment in the country is polarised and the temperature is hot. As I mentioned, the next issue of Too Long is out very soon, and if you subscribe using promo code SUMMER26 at checkout, you'll get 20% off every copy as long as you stay subscribed, plus an additional £3 off your first copy. It's not just Trump's wars and conflicts though. The summer issue of Too Long contains news from each region, including pieces from elections around the world, including the UK, Bulgaria, Hungary, Slovenia and Denmark, a piece on if we're heading into a new world war, the Euro's missing members, an update on what's happening following the Gen Z protests of last year, as well as a rundown of Trump's continued threat towards Greenland. Speaking of Greenland, if you didn't already know, we visited Greenland earlier in the year to film a series called What's the Big Deal with Greenland? While there, we explored the vast impenetrable country, camped on a glacier, and drove out to the US's abandoned military bases. The first episode will be out soon, with all episodes exclusively available to TLDR Party members. You can learn more about TLDR Party by clicking the link in the description, but the cheapest way to sign up is in a bundle with Too Long. So if you are going to subscribe to the latest issue of the magazine, consider grabbing yourself a TLDR Party membership at the same time.